Every weekend now we're bringing you some kind of breaking news. It's a crazy world we live in, but normally it's reform and Tory psychodramas. But tonight we're going to be talking about one that's about to happen in the Labour Party. And I want to start with this. Can you feel the burn, Keir Starmer? That's right. Greater Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham, the self-styled King of the North, has declared his intention to run as a Westminster Labour MP. In a letter released just before the 5 p.m. deadline, Burnham claimed his return would support, not undermine, the struggling Labour government. But that's just a load of gaslighting, in my opinion, because it's blatantly clear to me Andy Burnham isn't returning to help Labour. He's returning to burn the house down and replace Keir Starmer as Prime Minister. Do you remember his media blitz just before a Labour Party conference last year, telling the press about his disastrous so-called plan to turn the country around? He was splashed on front-page spreads everywhere, Telegraph interviews, New Statesman covers, demanding wholesale change to fend off reform's so-called existential threat to Labour. And as the cracks widen inside the party, here's what Deputy Labour leader Lucy Powell had to say.
Andy Burnham is incredibly popular in my part of the world. He is an incredibly popular politician because he is really changing our city for the better and delivering on those Labour values.
Interesting. What about Burnham's fellow Mayor Sadiq Khan?
I think if Andy Burnham wants to be a Member of Parliament, Andy Burnham should be allowed to be a Member of Parliament. I'm a firm believer in the best teams having all the talent playing for them. And if Andy wants to return to Parliament, I'll try and make time between now and the by-election, go knock some doors for him.
Very interesting. Might he want someone to return the favour for him one day? I wonder. But be careful what you wish for, because what exactly is Burnham's big plan to save the country? Start a regional class war, perhaps? Hiking council tax on so-called posh London and South East homes to bankroll a £40 billion borrowing binge for council housing. These are some of his policies, by the way, that he flaunted. Slash income tax for low earners while slapping a 50p top rate of tax on high earners, which, let's face it, means more packed flights of wealth fleeing to Dubai, leaving the Treasury emptier than Burnham's leadership ambitions. We've already seen how many millionaires have deserted Britain over the last few months, and I certainly think it would be worse under Burnham's policies. And finally, he wants to nationalise housing, energy, water and rail, all under public control to roll back, the 1980s. It's not bold. Is bonkers. It is Corbynism with a fresh coat of paint, isn't it? And there's his record in Manchester. Let's talk about his handling of the grooming gang scandal, revealing not a strength here, but more abject failure. His 2017 assurance reviews into child sexual exploitation were later exposed as totally toothless. In 2024, senior experts resigned from his panels after authorities in his region withheld key data from them. Baroness Casey called the probe a farce, lacking statutory power, leaving victims completely unheard. And by mid-2025, Burnham quietly backed a national inquiry after his local efforts completely collapsed. Campaigner Maggie Oliver, a hero in my opinion, called his reports a smokescreen while victims still wait for justice. Not a good starting point, is it? This is the man now presenting himself as Labour's saviour. Andy Burnham embodies vulture politics, unable to win a Labour leadership contest fair and square in the Corbyn era. He's now circling as the government bleeds and Keir Starmer's positive net ratings as leader are hemorrhaging. He's preparing to ditch the Mancunians who elected him, isn't he? Using their city as a launchpad for his next ambition. Either way, this is bad news for Labour and Starmer, because whether Burnham wins or loses, the party is now set to tear itself apart over that decision either way.
This interruption is brought to you by ExpressVPN and their New Year deal. New Year, new VPN. And a huge saving of up to 80% if you act now. You're busy planning how to get in shape, but the hackers are planning how to get into your accounts. ExpressVPN locks down your connection so you can start the year protecting your data. This offer ends on the 7th of January, so scan the QR code or click the link in the description now.
And let's bring my panel in. Journalist and broadcaster Linda Jubilee, former Labour advisor Paul Richards, and Reform UK member and former Conservative MP Jonathan Gullis. Welcome, everybody. What a day. What a day. Another some kind of political... Another psychodrama. How about that, Linda?
Yeah.
What do you make of this? Do you think Andy Burnham would make a good Prime Minister? Because that's clearly... His letter's a load of rubbish, isn't it?
Well, obviously that's what he's aiming at, and he couldn't expect better conditions to this, even though it's widely described, and it is a tremendous gamble. In fact, there aren't many opportunities like this to launch a leadership bid. You know, there is a tide in the affairs of men which taken at the flood. You know, he could be in that position or he'll be left on the beach. But I think that he stands a reasonable chance of creating a pathway. His difficulty, I think, will be, I don't know what you two think about this, but his difficulty will be getting past the NEC. I think if he gets past that, I don't think he'll face the two big hurdles of an all-woman shortlist or a BAME shortlist, something like that.
You don't think they're going to try and stitch him up with a DEI candidate?
I think that would be a very, very unwise thing to do. And then, of course, he's in the hands of the Constituency Selection Committee, and I don't think they're likely to turn him down. But it's the NEC that will count.
Paul, are the NEC going to stitch him up, your mates in the NEC?
Well, my first thoughts are with Andrew Gwynn's family, because he's the guy that resigned on ill health. And if it was genuinely a plot to get Burnham in, of course, he would have done that in a few months' time after the May election. So I think that's a genuine resignation on grounds of ill health. It then presents Burnham with the opportunity that we're talking about. We have within the Labour Party rules, luckily, rules for precisely this scenario of an elected mayor or a police and crime commissioner wanting to give up a role to which they've already been elected in order to run in a by-election. And it goes to a 10-person committee, a subcommittee of the NEC.
Who's on that committee?
To decide...
How many people are Starmer loyalists on that committee?
Well, Keir Starmer, for a start.
Yeah.
So he's quite loyal.
Good starting point for Burnham, isn't it?
It's chaired by Shabana Mahmood.
Yeah.
There's a few of the sort of constituency people who are broadly loyal, but it's also got Lucy Powell on it, somebody from the GMB, a trade union, you know, not necessarily loyal, somebody from Uzzardor, the party's treasurer. So it's, you know, the sort of typical Labour Party kind of committee of the great and the good. On my numbers, I reckon 6 to 4 of those are Starmer loyalists, including Starmer. So
Isn't that his biggest hurdle, do you think?
So I think, of course, it is. And the rules are, you know, if it's in the best interest to let him go forward, then great. But if it's not, we just say to him, get on with managing Manchester. That's the job you've been elected to do for 3 more years. And do you know what? Your monologue, the attack line is, you know, he's deserting Manchester to go to London to become Prime Minister.
Yeah.
I mean, the argument that committee will have is, well, do you really want to face a by-election against that prospect?
Totally right.
Probably not.
Totally right. Well, Shabana Mahmood also has leadership ambitions herself, Jonathan. So it's like someone going, I want that job, so I'm gonna say no to you getting that job, Jonathan. But Reform UK have sent out an email today, 24-hour notice, similar to what Labour's actually done with Andy Burnham, given 24 hours to decide whether he can be a candidate or not. And so they're going to be putting someone up against it. Do you know who it might be? Is it Zia Youssef?
No idea, and I think if it's a candidate up against whoever it is in Greater Manchester, ideally be a local Greater Manchester individual, particularly in by-elections, that really does matter to local residents. Look, let's get to the plain hard facts of this. Keir Starmer cannot allow Andy Burnham the chance to run, because if he does, the moment Andy Burnham, if he does win the by-election, his speech that will be aired on every TV station will not be a speech to the residents of Gorton and Denton. It will be a speech to the country launching his bid to become the leader of the Labour Party, and it will be Keir Starmer might as well resign and go home. I can tell you now with Reform UK, we are going to throw the kitchen sink at this seat, whilst realising this is going to be a very difficult fight. This is Labour heartlands. It is an area where the Greens, from many MRPs and polls that we've seen, are also polling very strongly too. We saw what happened in Caerphilly with the Progressive Left rallying around a single left-wing party in order to stop Reform UK. So we'll be calling on Conservative voters to do the right thing and back a Reform UK candidate to give Keir Starmer a bloody nose and potentially Andy Burnham a bloody nose.
We haven't started it yet. You know, hold your horse.
So I think it's going to be very important. It's going to be, but also what Keir Starmer is rightly dreading is if if this by-election doesn't go ahead, and if this by-election goes ahead with Andy Burnham as the candidate, and we have a by-election for the mayoralty of Greater Manchester, if you look at the donut ring effect that Layla Cunningham's targeting for the mayor of London, do the same maths in Greater Manchester, and Reform UK have a shot at winning it.
He's really hurt them here, hasn't he? This is a really bad move.
That will be the reason, I bet you, if he is blocked, and this could happen, by the way, tomorrow or Monday, they're talking about convening this committee quickly. If he is blocked, those will be the grounds, I think, on which it will be blocked. A, the massive cost of a mayoral by-election.
When millions of people, by the way, are being denied votes at the moment.
And B, the very real prospect of handing Greater Manchester to Reform, something that we don't want to happen. So you can see why they can construct a political argument that says, thanks, Andy, but no thanks.
Let's give Andy some, let's just be nice about him for a second.
He's a very nice man.
Well, it looks like, by looking at the polls, Labour would really struggle to cling on to the seat. If the Tory and Reform votes sort of collided together, they would sweep in and take the seat because, of course, you've got the Greens now swooping in, attacking Labour on the left flank. They're looking at sitting around 20% on that seat. It's a three-way split.
I think the Greens stand a reasonable chance in that seat because if you look at the demographic profile of the seat, it has a younger than average residency, which means that favours the Green Party.
Yeah.
And those over 50, which favour Reform, for example, are only 17% of the whole seat. So Zach Polansky stands a reasonable chance. I don't know what the chances are of him actually standing in that seat, but the Green Party...
But my point was this. If Burnham doesn't stand, Burnham standing looks like the only way they'll keep that seat, actually, is what I'm trying to say. So they're kind of doomed if they do, doomed if they don't. If Burnham doesn't stand, they'll lose a seat, which they don't want to give to Reform. If he does stand, they lose a mayor, which also they could lose to Reform. Maybe there's Nigel Farage sort of clapping his hands together like a seal here going, I can't believe they've done this. This is great.
Well, I think this is what the interesting fact is. I totally accept that if Andy Burnham is the Labour candidate, it will be very difficult for Reform UK to win that seat. Not insurmountable, but challenging because he's got massive profile. He will be able to hoover up a lot of Green Party votes. Zach Polansky's already on the record saying he's willing to do deals with a Andy Burnham-led Labour Party. And so, that progressive alliance on the left will be something that will have to be hard to overcome. But, yes, you are correct. Look, Reform UK, we're here to tell the Uni Party that they're done and dusted. The time is nigh. It's time to go in the bin. It's time for change. You've rightly pointed out, not only has Andy Burnham done a terrible job when it comes to grooming gangs, but the police, under his watch, is in special measures. How on earth can you trust a man who's got this situation going on in Greater Manchester with the keys to Downing Street?
Very final words to Paul over here. Andy Burnham, the saviour of your party, the only man that can save you now, very briefly.
In Manchester last weekend watching United. What a great city, booming, great growth, great buses. Andy Burnham, thank you very much. Carry on doing the great job you're doing.
OK, there we go. Right.